Welcome to Jewish Boy Calls His Mother. I'm your host, Sadia. This is my mother, Ima. Hey, Ima.
Hello. Why does the video always make my cheeks look so fat?
It's the angle that you're at. If you have a higher angle, you lift up your phone higher, it thins you out. That's why. You could also do like a change in the image where it can thin out your image. But no worries. We're going to be talking about your first attempt at chocolate cake and other ways of domestication.
Recipes that fail. Here's what happened. I was at Machlon Khan in the dormitory. This was my first attempt to bake what I thought was a chocolate cake for Shabbos. It was an in Shabbos. In Shabbos meant, dormitory Shabbos. We don't, as opposed to going out and eating by people in the neighborhood. So I decided to bake a chocolate cake, and I just threw together my own recipe, not realizing, hey, you need baking powder to make a cake. But what can I say? It turned out like chocolate toffee.
Oh, wow. Well, that would taste nice.
Like gum or chocolate gum or something. It was like, oh, so the girls were coming into the kitchen and tearing off pieces of it and chewing on it. They said it tasted good. And then I said, this was supposed to be a cake for Shabbos. They said, yes. And they take off another piece and put it in their mouths and chew on it.
And what about times when you were a success and people really loved your cooking?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, one time I made this, years later, we had some of your father's friends as guests for Shabbos. And I made this really nice strawberry shortcake. What I did was I made like a regular white cake, and I put whipped cream in between the layers and pieces of strawberry, and then I garnished it with all this whipped cream around it and whole strawberries all around it. And when I brought it to the table, your father's friends went on together, and your father says to me, take it back, they don't want it. So as I got older and wiser, I did become more successful in my cooking attempts.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of how life is. You just get better over time.
Except then there was the chicken soup where I added too much salt, and your father said it tasted like the Dead Sea.
Oof. Yeah, that would be a little too much. I think I remember one time I accidentally used salt instead of sugar in a recipe. And I forgot what it was. I'm trying to remember. I think it might have been I think it was lemonade accidentally. And I made lemonade, but I didn't use sugar, I used salt. And I almost threw up, or I think I did throw up. I remember one time I threw up. You were cleaning the floor, and there was a bucket, but it wasn't shaped like a bucket. It was a pitcher, and it was a blue pitcher that you couldn't see inside. And I was really thirsty, and I poured myself a drink and I drank it. I remember, and I just started throwing up all over the place.
I don't remember that. See, I brought out unpleasant memories.
Yeah, there's a psychological issue with that. You know that, right? I don't know. If you have repressed memories, I heard you're not supposed to get into them.
I don't believe in this business of suppressed memories, because you talk to anyone who's been through a trauma of some sort, and everyone says the same thing. They didn't suppress that memory. They remember every horrible detail about it.
Well, no, I know some people who literally have repressed memories. They can't remember anything. They can't go back to it. They don't remember ages from like 6 to 10. You know?
I remember 6 to 10 all too vividly.
Yeah, don't blame your parents for your problems. So what did I write here? I'm trying to remember what we were talking about, but
well, as you get older, the memory starts to go.
No, I'm trying to read my handwriting.
That also starts to go.
Oh, I see what I wrote.
Do you remember your father's handwriting?
Oh my God, chicken scratches. Chicken scratches.
I think it was you who he had signed. Was it your homework? One of your brothers or sisters?
Mm-hmm.
you signed their homework, your homework, and you brought it to your Rebbe, and the Rebbe accused you of trying to forge your father's signature. And you said, no, this is my father's handwriting. He says, that's impossible. No normal human being would write like this.
I think it was I don't think it was me. I think it was somebody else.
I think it might have been Yosef.
Yeah. But what I want to talk about though was white lies to keep someone happy.
That is a very good topic. White lies. But we had the story one of other podcasts, but I'll repeat it about when I was in New York. There was a girl who had just gotten engaged, and she had a picture of her chassan in a locket around her neck. So she opens up the locket and she shows the picture to me, and she goes, "Isn't he handsome? Isn't he handsome?" The guy looked like a muskrat with glasses. And so I said to her, instead of course, I didn't say he looks like a muskrat with glasses. I wouldn't tell her that. I said, "Oh, yes, he is."
Yeah, I'm so happy for you.
I should have said yes.
Yeah. No, I'm trying to think of any white lies. I don't know, because I grew up in an environment where you were like, you always had to be honest. You never really like lied, even white lies, to make someone happy.
Well, there was one. What happened was with your daughter. I mean, your sister Mushka was named after the Rebbitzin, Chaim Mushka.
Oh yeah.
And your father knew that my parents would be upset that I didn't name her after my father's mother.
Myra, right? Mora?
Right, her name is Mara. Right.
Yeah, Mara.
So, which means bitter.
Yeah, we talked about it previously.
Right. So anyway, so your father wanted me to lie and tell my father, "Oh, but I did name her after your mother. It's Mushka is the Hebrew of Mara."
Yeah.
I turned it around and lied to her. But what happened was I had the opportunity to kind of make up for it many, many years later. My mother, before she passed away, she says to me, "Oh, that's right. Isn't your Mushka named after your father's mother?" I'm going to say my mother's laying there, towards her, towards her last days.
Yeah.
So I said, "Oh, yes, that's right."
How many lies did you tell your mother on her deathbed?
Not too many. That might have been. Well, she wasn't really on her deathbed. It was towards the end of her life, though. She wasn't in hospice yet. But when she mentioned something to me many years, like it was just like a year or two before she passed away, and that's when she said to me, "Oh, isn't Mushka named after your father's mother?" And I said, "Well, I'm going to say no." I said, "Yeah." And then there was the story about well, this wasn't a total like semi. What happened was your brother Yosef Yitzhak is named after, of course, the Rebbe's father-in-law, the Frierdiker Rebbe. And when we were at the bris, when they announced the name Yosef Yitzhak, one of my mother's sister was there, and my grandfather, her father, was Yosef Leib. So she got very excited and she smiled at me and goes, "Oh, after Pop." And what am I going to tell him? It'll ruin her happiness?
Yeah.
So I smiled and said, "Yes, that's right." I said, "Yes." I told her it was a combination.
Yeah.
His name and the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe's name, which I'm not like it was Yitzhak. So yeah, I told her yes. I just smiled yes, and I told her it was a combination. And,
but wasn't your mother's name Chaya or something like that?
What happened was I always thought my mother's name was Rachel. And then after we named Mushka, I was washing the dishes and I was afraid to call my parents to tell them that, her name was Chaya Mushka. I knew they'd be disappointed. I didn't name her after, my father's mother, whatever. So your father, my hands were in the sink, all full of soap and water. And father calls my mother and puts the phone right under my chin. This was the old phones.
Yeah, the old phones. Yeah.
He puts the phone right under my chin, and I couldn't. My mother answers the phone. I go, "Okay, Ma." I said, "I guess you want to hear the baby's name." Yeah. And I say, "Chaya Mushka." And then there's a pause, and she says, "My name is Chaya Rachel." Oops.
Oopsie poopsie. Oopsie poopsie.
I thought your name was Rachel. She says, "No, it's Chaya Rachel." I go, "Oops. Oh, well." And then she says, "Well, I'm glad someone's named for me."
Oh, gosh.
She took it good naturedly. But Sephardim don't
Yes,
understand this.
yes,
If we were Sephardic, she would consider it an honor. But in the Ashkenazic world, you name somebody after a living relative, it's like you're wishing they were dead or something.
exactly, exactly.
It's an
Um,
insult.
I'm trying to think of white lies I used to say or I said to a few people. Um, I can't think of anything specific. Probably like a compliment or two of someone's
Oh,
dress. Oh,
here's
what?
another one.
Yeah, what is
I
it?
was at this was before I was married. I was single. I was at this friends of mine, this married friend of mine in Crown Heights for Shabbos, and the girl sitting next to me drank all the wine
Oh, wow.
in the bottle. So when my friend came over to clear off the table, she picked up the wine bottle and she goes to the kitchen and she realizes it's empty. And she looks at the wine bottle and she looks at her husband and he wasn't looking at her, but she looks at him like with this look of disgust.
Yeah,
And I thought, oh my God, don't tell me
yeah.
that this is horrible. She thinks that he drank, the wine. So I had an idea. So when she was by the table, I looked up at her very sheepishly and said, I'm sorry, I have to admit something. And she looks down at me, she goes, did you drink up all that wine? I go, mm-hmm,
Cute.
I'm sorry. She goes, that's okay. But
It's
I mean, I didn't want to tell him the girl that drank up all that wine, unfortunately, was suffering from mental illness. It was really sad.
wait, was she the crazy lady in your
No,
seminary
no,
that
no,
killed
she wasn't.
herself?
No,
Okay.
that wasn't she. No, she this was a girl. This was a girl who I mean, it was obviously, she suffered some form of mental illness, and so I didn't want to tell my friend the truth and get her in trouble.
Yeah.
And I certainly, I felt bad that here she suspected her husband.
Yeah.
That's sad because it's a husband and wife relationship. And so I decided to go ahead and take the blame for it.
I,
Okay.
I I think I remember one time I was at a Farbrengen during Sukkot, and a friend of mine uh came in to the sukkah, and I was gonna pour him a l'chaim, and his father-in-law was right there, and I didn't realize like I was pouring him a l'chaim, and like his father-in-law was like eyeballing him like because I poured him a decent amount, and like he was like giving him a real like are you sure you're gonna drink all that kind of attitude. And I was like, oh, never mind. All right. And they kind of like stopped pouring him, and we just like slowly avoided it.
Yeah, didn't want to
Um,
get him in trouble with the father-in-law. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, sure. Also, like,
Mhm.
some people have like dagger eyes naturally, I think. You know, it's like resting
I
dagger
like
eye
the way you
face.
put that. I like the way you put that, dagger eyes.
Yeah, because it's just like I realize some people like they just have a look where like they look at you and they look like they can kill you, but it's not like anything personal. That's just what they like. I remember Mr. Gross.
Mhm.
He had like he would give me those eyes sometimes just to see because kids would be scared of him. And I don't know, I was used to Tati. I didn't really get it. Like, what are you doing? He thought it was really funny, but like he had those eyes that like 1,000 mile stare eyes. Um, did you actually notice when you were younger, if you were a kid, like if your parents like friends like went through some like rough stuff during the war, like looking back, like their attitude and how they presented themselves and how they talked and whatnot and looked?
Gee, that's a really good question. I don't sh- my my parents really weren't such great socializers.
Okay.
They really weren't. They the only friend I remember a couple of my mother's friends. She had a friend named Florence,
Hmm.
and Florence didn't go through, and Florence, didn't have any like World War II trauma. She wasn't a Holocaust survivor or anything. And my father, I do remember my father really socializing that much. He really was kind of a loner. He really was not that much of a social bug. And my mother had, I remember my mother's non-Jewish friend Frances, who would have us over, sometimes for Christmas over her house.
Hmm.
And also she also like, she nobody in her family suffered any World War II trauma. Now, I did have a good friend who, when I was around 10 years old, who her parents were Holocaust survivors. And I don't know, they were, you would, I don't know, you would never guess
Interesting.
that they were, yeah, they were very, they were very normal people. They were very normal individuals.
Well, yeah. I
And,
mean,
yeah, they never um like they didn't go around like they were suffering or anything. They were, they worked hard. They owned a store and they worked hard, and they were, they seemed like very, like very upbeat, nice, positive people.
so what about this having Christmas at Francis' house?
Yeah.
Can
Hmm.
you talk about that a little bit?
I was very, very young. In fact, we have a picture of my sister um standing next to the Krexmach tree.
Hmm.
I don't know, we were just, we were just there, and I just remember, like basically just, just playing with some things, some toys, whatever. I don't remember too much of it, but we would just there as friends, and
Just spend time there during
yeah,
over the
yeah,
weekend.
yeah.
You wouldn't?
Um,
Okay.
I don't remember too much about it, yeah. Except it was like a social time, just like a social time. I'm trying to think, like you talk about like white lies,
White lies.
white lies.
Or like when you were like maybe a kid or something, but I don't know.
White lies, white lies. Da, 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 da. White lies, white lies. Do, do. All right.
It's okay. We can move on.
Yeah. Well, other than
Um,
the few incidents as I mentioned, I
uh,
don't remember. I don't remember.
yeah, no, it's okay. We can move on. I have plenty of other
Okay.
stuff to talk about. Don't worry about it.
But it's very interesting. There was one time though. You see, it's interesting. Like with me, a lot of people, when a woman like will ask one of her female relatives or a friend, "Does this dress look nice?
Yeah.
Does makeup look good? Does this?" A lot of times women think, "Oh, she's fishing for compliments. Don't tell her the
Yeah.
truth. It looks horrible, whatever." I was never that way. When I asked somebody's opinion, I wanted their honest opinion, and I wasn't offended. I really wanted to know, because I'm not a fashion bug. I
Yeah.
don't have a good artistic eye for color or shape or whatever. I mean, I go by basic colors. You know what I mean? A light blouse will look good with a dark skirt, that type of thing. Just very, very basic colors. Like patterns, like if you're wearing a top as a pattern, so you wear a plain skirt, you wear a one
Yeah.
colored skirt. If you're wearing a skirt as a pattern, so you wear one colored blouse, that type of thing.
Yeah. Not too savvy,
So
but you knew what you were doing.
right, right. But there are some people that are, very artistic, and they have this great eye, and they could mix and match and come up with all these like really like beautiful combinations. That's not me. So there was one time I bought a dress, and I thought that maybe it really, I wasn't sure if it looked good on me or not. If maybe I was more middle aged, so maybe I was beyond the dress stage where I should really, you know, just wear tops and skirts.
Yeah.
There's a point where
Yeah, I know what you're
there's some
saying.
dresses, but there were some times where like I think it was like a jumper, where you're beyond the jumper stage. You're too
Hmm.
old for the jumper stage now.
Yeah.
And so I asked your sister Frummy about it, and Frummy said to me, "Ema, if you like it, it's okay." I said, "No, Frummy, I want an honest opinion." And she hesitated. She was nervous. So finally she said, "Ema, I think it's too young for you. I think you need at this stage to wear tops and skirts." And I said, "Thank you." Because I was thinking the same thing, but I wasn't sure. And I
Yeah.
wanted to see if my instincts were correct. And she was like a little surprised,
Well,
because she thought like all women do it. She's looking for. And I remember one time buying a dress. I wasn't sure about it. And a lot of women, then they show a dress to their husbands, and their husbands say, "No, it looks horrible on you," and they get offended. There's a fight. I wanted his honest opinion. So I said, "What do you think of this dress?" Because he has a very good eye. for
Yeah.
art and for shape and for colors. And he said to me, I don't like it. It's not you. I said, thank you. I said, that's what I wanted. So I'm back to the store it goes.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because like I was speaking to some people and they were telling me some stories about, you know, being with certain people and how they would respond. It's more of like how much is someone paying you lip service versus how much someone's trying to be honest but not hurt their feelings. And it's walking that fine line because, I have experiences where I've spoken to people and I've told them from the heart how I felt. And they just thought I was giving them lip service. They didn't really think I was being honest, or they thought I was just feeding them a line. And when I was starting to hear this one person talking about how their significant other was feeding them a line, they were saying they took it as a compliment. And me, I'm like, I don't know. It just sounds like he's feeding you a line. It just doesn't really like, I'm just not buying it. And I think that's where it is, where it's like, maybe I'm just, I guess, scarred from people like me not feeding a line and someone thinks it is, versus now I think everyone's feeding me a line, you know? But
I don't know. I think, like they say, honesty is the best policy. And a lot of times well, let's put it this way. I mentioned that the story about the girl with her husband.
yeah,
And I mentioned to Auntie, you know what Auntie said to me? She said, you weren't lying. To her, he was handsome. So you
yeah.
weren't lying.
Well, it's adding to what you were saying beforehand. You were talking about how you were trying to find clothes that go well and fit. There's this new service. I just heard about it on I think I was listening to Pandora and heard on the advertisement. I forgot what it's called, but what you do is you go online to this website, you give them your dimensions, you tell them your palette, your color palette that you like, and they'll give you clothes, and they'll give you clothes to match with, like, as a total outfit, and you have to wear it, whatever you like, keep whatever you don't, send back. So that's really interesting. I think that's really kind of reminds me of Clueless, that movie Clueless, with that
Yes, I
girl
remember.
would go through all the outfits and sift through whatever she likes on her computer or online. I thought that was pretty neat. But moving on, we were talking about TV shows that glamorize a lifestyle that shouldn't be glamorized. Like, I guess, like mafia shows or prostitution shows, or there's this one show called Euphoria that just it glamorizes just dumb teenagers making dumb teenage mistakes. Interestingly enough, it was originally an Israeli TV show that was fit more to American standards. And American standard television, like I've watched some Israeli shows that went American, and what I've seen was like the Israeli show, I think, would nail it on the head of like what exactly. I guess they'd keep a good steady pace, and American shows would just like dramatize it and make it bigger.
My father mentioned something about that. One time we were talking about the difference between say British humor and American humor. And my father said the difference, he says, British humor is like an underplayed type humor. American humor is exaggerated.
Yeah. Yeah, which gets kind of annoying if you think about it.
But what I thought was interesting though is I don't know if we discussed this one time about I'm into old movies. In fact, when I was a teenager, when I was in college, that was the thing. In fact, in college it was the style. I mean, a lot of us college kids really were into the old vintage movies. We loved watching them for historical insight. And I was watching the original Our Gang comedy, Little Rascals, the silent ones, the silent Little Rascals from the mid-1920s, early mid-1920s. And the humor in it, Aunt Ann said the same thing, that it reminded us of our father's humor, like an underplayed type humor. And there was one episode where this little girl named Mary, her father is he's involved in the racing business, in the horse racing business. And it says, and it shows Mary with her father. They're about to go there. Our father's going into the racetrack. He has a horse that whatever that he's entering, and so the play card says, Mary's father is not dishonest. He's just broad-minded on the subject.
Oh, that's cute.
Yeah.
That's really cute. I wrote down place guaranteed a good time. Trying to figure out what that meant.
Places you go where you're guaranteed a good time.
Yes, that's what it is.
Israel.
Yeah, we said Israel, and I think that's
Israel,
true.
yeah.
I think it's true if you're Jewish. I don't know if you're not Jewish, if you're automatically going to have a good time or not. I think I remember there's one celebrity. I think it was it Usher? He's this famous singer, and like his ideal location would be Tel Aviv. And what I liked about Israel was that there was this comfortability there that I don't have anywhere else.
Yes.
You really feel finally. You don't realize how much you're holding your breath until you go to Israel and finally breathe. I think that's something that I like. I don't think anybody else who, is not Jewish understands that. And any Jew who's anti-Zionist, I don't think they get the damage they're causing and the misunderstanding that they're having. But
what's good so good about Israel is, like, we were there for the Yom Tovim, your father and I, and when as long as you're a Jew in this country, United States, you still feel like a stepchild.
Yeah.
And when you're in Israel, it's like everyone's celebrating the Yom Tovim. And they're all celebrating the same holidays that you're celebrating.
Yeah.
And it makes you feel, so much more camaraderie. Funny thing happened though. Your father and I were on our way. I think Yosef was with us. We were walking down, I think it might have been Rosh Hashanah or Yom Kippur. I forgot where, it might have been either Rosh Hashanah or Yom Kippur. And we're going down one of the main drags towards the Kotel. And these young men come running up to us, desperate, because they heard us speaking English. And they go, please, can you help us? Please, can you help us? They said, we're Christians and we're starving. What restaurants are open? Like,
oh no.
So we noticed, like, down Rehov Yafa, there were some Goisha restaurants there were a couple Goisha restaurants that were open that day. And so we pointed them down to Rehov Yafa, and they thanked us over and over again.
Yeah, it was funny because I remember when I was in Israel, and Yehuda visited, and I was hanging out with him, and we met with these two random guys who weren't Jewish at all, just visiting on vacation actually. And we thought it was interesting because we went to different places in Israel, and we don't speak Hebrew fluently, but we can get around decently. And we realized this comes naturally to us because we were born in it and we were exposed to it at a very young age, and that other people look at it and it's like apples to oranges. They can't make heads or tails. They can't read it, and it's just
yeah.
When I was in Israel, I definitely felt at home. I definitely felt more comfortable to be myself. I definitely felt it gave me the better opportunity to finally open up and find myself. And it was the best time I've ever had in my life.
You said, you talk about having a good time. Like your father and I, we were in Israel. We went, I think we went to a sports bar. It's really strange. Would we ever go to a sports bar here in the United States? You kidding? But in Israel, it was the most natural thing. It was a kosher bar, kosher food, kosher drinks. And it just felt so natural for us to, go to a bar, to, restaurant bar. It was
Yeah, even when
we
we
didn't have to worry about what we're eating, what we're not eating. Everything around us was kosher.
Yeah. But that's
Although
also
in Israel, you do have to, in certain respects, I understand, There's sometimes that you'd have to be a little cautious though, because like, there's some hechsharim that are better than other hechsharim,
Yeah, but it's
not all
not.
hechsharim are created equal. And also, even with Chalav Yisrael, I'm surprised that with Chalav Yisrael, not all factories in Israel are Chalav Yisrael, and you still have to look for the Chalav Yisrael's insignia
Yeah,
when you're buying something, eating something melchik.
yeah, but then again, that's like comparing about one caviar over another caviar without the option of even having caviar. You know what I mean? That's like like the hechsherim. There are plenty of hechsherim where like it could be the halacha, it could be the politics, it could be one thing or another, but it's not as bad as like going to somewhere in Europe where glatt kosher doesn't exist because they outlawed shechita. You know,
Mm-hmm.
so it's just like it's pennies to the dollar in my opinion when it comes to complaining about the hechsherim in Israel.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think I was who was I talking? What was I talking about? We were mentioning something. I was trying to speak, and then we kind of got carried on.
Having a
Um,
good time.
yeah, sure. Um, I'm trying to remember. I'm really trying to remember here. But what we were discussing Israel. We're talking to hechshers. We're talking about something else. Whatever. I lost it. This is where sometimes I try to interject, but like not too much.
Just sit in the back, it'll come back to you.
Yeah, we got like
That's
8 minutes left before it's
usually I
time.
see after the podcast, I think, oh darn, should have said that, should have said this, should have said
Yeah.
that.
Well,
All the stuff comes to me after the podcast.
So what I think what I was saying was, yes, when I was in Italy, even when I was in Israel, I went to Italy. So technically still like in this, I was very young, between 18 and 20. I still had this like, you know, free world. I got to like be myself kind of after being engrossed in like very tight restraints. Um, in Italy, I definitely felt there was a part of me that like wasn't wanted. Um,
You're probably
you
right
know,
about
this
that.
you besides the archititis that's still there, and like seeing
Mhm.
swastikas here and there, like
Ooh.
yeah, you really start feeling like, oh, like you try to still get that Israel vibe, but like you start going to places and it's more cut off. It's more of like, I'm not interested in talking to you, I'm not interested in seeing you, I'm not socializing with you as much.
Menachem mentioned something when he was in the Ukraine. He said he was walking down the street, and I forgot which part of the Ukraine he was in. I think he was probably in Kiev, but he said that nobody was overtly anti-Semitic towards him or mean, but he said he just picked up vibes from people that walked by him that if they had the opportunity to kill him, they probably wouldn't pass it up.
Yeah,
He got that very that feeling that you said, we really don't want you here type thing.
that's anywhere in Europe though. I was in Amsterdam. Um, I was in Italy, and the whole Europe vibe, it's definitely like you think you feel uncomfortable in America, going to Europe, that vibe is totally, totally worse. Because it's
Yeah.
like it's not like in America where you might get some right wingers that are like, Nazis, or some like leftist communists that like hate Israel and Zionism. But like you go to Europe and it's like the average Joe, like Racham's right, the vibe. It's just the vibe of them. Like you feel like they just don't care whether you live or die. In a negative sense, not so much like in a. I feel like in America they have that attitude. I don't care if you live or die, in a neutral sense.
Mm-hmm.
But like if you're outwardly Jewish in Europe, there's definitely this. You definitely feel like there's an ugly look behind your back.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that was just my experience. Maybe some dumbass who has his own head up his ass thinks like, oh, it's gonna be fine. He doesn't feel that way. Um, but I don't know. I personally don't like Europe for what it is and what it's done. It's soaked with Jewish blood for
Oh.
2,000 years. So
Sometimes I wonder about the like land. like if this that has, like you said, been soaked, been drenched in Jewish blood for so many centuries.
Mm-hmm.
Um, History's shown that the how to say it, that that blood eventually comes,
Boils up.
boils up with a vengeance. Yeah.
I don't know. I think they got away easy, in my opinion.
Last chapter hasn't been written.
Ugh, whatever. I don't think it matters.
Uh,
I
but well, I remember we talk about, okay, we're talking about anti-Semitism a little bit on, Crown, when I was in Crown Heights in the 1970s.
Oh yeah.
Oh boy, there was a tremendous amount of anti-Semitism. And I was walking down the street with a friend of mine, and these two very anti-Semitic girls were behind us.
We talked about this, I think.
And yeah, they said they called us Jew.
Okay.
They go, "Hey, Jew." So we just ignored them. And I said to my friend, "Hey, let's just duck into this." It was a kosher restaurant in Kingston. Let's just duck into this restaurant, get a cup of coffee, and try to shake these girls. So we went to the restaurant. We got a cup of coffee. We're sitting there drinking it, and we're drinking, and I happened to glance at the door. I crack up laughing. I said, "Hey, they're out there waiting for us." we both burst out laughing, waved to them, ordered some pie. What are we going to do next? We'll order another cup of coffee, another piece of pie.
You didn't get any male escorts to get you out?
We didn't care. We just sat there eating. We figured eventually they're going to get tired of waiting for us. In the meantime, we're just going to have lunch.
Yeah. I don't
We
know.
didn't care. Yeah, but that's what happened. Eventually, they got tired of waiting for us and moved on. Then there was one incident in Crown Heights. Oh, I forgot what happened. Some guy on a bus. I don't know. Some guy on a bus was yelling at some young Jewish guy who was walking on Kingston Avenue and yelling all sorts of anti-Semitic things at him. And the Jewish man was walking by the store where there was a whole display of eggs outside the store. He grabbed one of the cartons and threw the eggs through the window of the bus and hit the guy right in the face as the bus was pulling away. He goes into the store to the proprietor and says, "How much do I owe you?" The proprietor said to him, "It's on the house."
Yeah, I think we've said this both stories previously.
Okay. Maybe we've got new listeners that haven't heard them yet.
Yeah, I don't know. Whatever. Sorry, I'm just anti-Semitism pisses me off because I see that there's no end to it. You can't argue with them, can't have a conversation with them. You can't go ahead and try to fight them, because if you fight them, that's even worse. Then means you're the aggressor. You're the horrible human being for existing. How dare you? How should you? You should go ahead and hide in a cave. And then when you sit there and you do nothing, everyone calls you some liberal cuck who is just trying to just be submissive and not fighting back. Like there's no win whatsoever. And I'm just like, I have these Instagrams for like Shmuel Boteach and his daughter, who have this thing called Jew Defense, and like every couple of days they show something new of some person around the entire world doing something horribly anti-Semitic. And I'm like, why are you doing this? Why are you wasting your time? Nobody cares. It's not going to help. Whether you show it or not, it's just, I don't know. I think it's just like water is wet and people hate Jews. Like that's just how I see my life. I don't see anything else, any way of this ending.
There was what was it, a few years ago? There was this man. I thought it was a joke at first, and I found out later, no, it was not a joke. He has a kapata that has
Yes.
you can put a gun inside
Yes.
the kapata, and it shows him learning. He's sitting over a sefer, and he's learning in the base medrash, and all of a sudden you hear people screaming, and he stands up, he pulls back his kapata, he pulls out his gun and starts shooting. And he had it on sale. He was selling this particular type of kapata that you could wear, where you could actually put a gun in there for easy access. And I tossed it over in my mind, to be armed, to not to be armed. Should I buy a gun? Should I not? Especially here in Florida, you don't even need a permit anymore to buy a gun. Anybody can buy a gun now. And I know, as a matter of fact, I met a Jewish woman who she always carries her gun with her, always, wherever she goes.
Yeah, I guess.